Welcome back to another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. Today, I'm joined by a special guest. Her name is Kashlee from traveloffpath.com. Kashlee, how's it going?
It's going really good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. To give people some context, Travel Off Path is one of the largest independent travel news sites in the world, over 3 million monthly page views, 2 million monthly visitors. And I first heard about your site, Cashly, um, basically during the pandemic over the past 2 years and learning about the travel restrictions. And I found that your website was the most reliable news source I could find online with the most up to date information. You were updating it every single day. And I think you guys probably built a lot of your brand and grew a lot during that time. Would that be right?
Yeah, actually, you got the nail right on the head with that one. We were a big site, but what really made us one of the largest independent news websites out there was the pandemic because people they didn't know where they could go, they didn't know where they could travel, where was open, where was closed, what you needed, did you need a vaccine, PCR, or whatever. And
Mhm.
we were kind of the first ones where other travel brands they kind of skidded away from talking about travel. Not that they were
Mhm.
discouraging it, but they definitely weren't encouraging it. And we kind of jumped in with everything we had and said, okay, let's help people figure out how to travel during this time because not traveling is just not going to happen for so many of us, especially nomadic people. So we got on the phone with consulates and we were on government websites and we found out the rules for every single country and we tried to update it, like you said, daily or as frequently as we could. And because of that, people saw us as a trusted source of travel information, especially in pandemic era travel. And we really grew a ton throughout all of the pandemic.
Yeah, and I really actually did look at your website quite a lot. And between hearing about your website, probably going on 2 years ago now, and then kind of digging behind the scenes and learning that you're Canadian and that you live in Mazatlan, Mexico now, I was like, damn, there's actually a lot of overlap here, a lot of synergy. So I thought it'd be cool to have you on the podcast and hear a little bit more about your story and what you're working on.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
So maybe you could tell the audience a little bit about your background, yourself, your story, your personal journey from Canada. I read that at some point you sold your house and started traveling the world. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've always been traveling. I have hippie parents, so they've always brought us around and kind of taught us experience over things. And then somewhere in my 20s, I became a real estate agent and kind of started living the opposite life from my childhood. I was kind of more concerned with how much money can I make and maybe I can flip houses and build a huge house of my own and, get lots of things and really plant roots. And it only took like I don't know, maybe a year, 2 years at most, where I looked at myself and I looked at my life and I was like, okay, this is not kosher. This is not gonna work for me. Um, I definitely was not living true to myself. So I kind of just did like a cold turkey quit my career. I had my own sub brokerage. I just got up and left, just left everything behind, sold my house, sold my car, and then started traveling the world. And I mean, I sold all the things too, right? I sold everything from the paintings on the wall to extra clothes in the closet, and then just started traveling the world full time. And that's where Travel Off Path was born because, of course, if you're going to travel the world full time, you need to find a source of income online. Travel Off Path didn't make a ton of money in its first few years, but I did have some left over from real estate that was really good. And so the last 8 years, I've pretty much just been traveling full time. But the last 4 years, I have had a base in Mazatlan. So while I still travel, at least I have a bit of a home base there because it's kind of the best place I've found.
Interesting. And sorry, how long ago did you quit your job and start traveling?
8 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
So you sold your house, I guess now doing the math, like 2014?
Yep.
And you're from Kelowna, BC, right?
Yeah, I was born in Toronto, and then I moved to Regina, Saskatchewan, which is where I was doing real estate. And then after I sold my house, what I did was I put an RV in Kelowna. So I had an RV that was sitting here that if I wanted to come visit family or friends in the summer, that I could just chill in this RV and it's parked right on the lake. And then that was kind of, I wouldn't really say like a home base because I was only here kind of a few weeks a year, but I would kind of pop into the RV and see people from Canada that I wanted to see in between traveling.
Okay, so the RV was like part of your international strategy so that you kind of had like somewhere to come back to
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Canada, even though like, and it just kind of like stayed there.
Yeah, it doesn't have an address. It's like super off the grid. No one really knows it's here. So it's kind of like this little paradise where no one can find me. And, I just have like a PO box for my Canadian address.
Right, definitely makes sense. And then, if you don't mind me asking, is your I know you kind of built Travel Off Path with your husband. Is
Yeah.
he Canadian as well? And did you embark on this journey together, or did you guys meet somewhere along the way?
Yeah, he is Canadian and he was into restaurant management as a job when we met. And he had never even traveled outside of Canada, really. He'd only been to the States once. He definitely did not have the travel bug. And when he met me, it was right in the middle of my transition. I had just sold my house, just quit my job. So he meets me. I'm this crazy person who's like, okay, if you want to be with me, you're going to have to travel all over the world. You're going to have to give up life as you know it. So he kind of took a huge chance and a huge dive in on that, which is kind of neat. And he's been traveling with me the last 8 years with like no complaints. He absolutely adapted to this lifestyle like it was meant for him, which is such an amazing thing to see.
Wow, that's awesome. And we talked a bit about Mazatlan, and I want to come back to that because I think it's really interesting what you said that it's one of the best places you've found. But it's probably worth highlighting that you've been a little bit everywhere. You've been doing Europe, Asia, Latin America, and it's pretty cool to see someone that's not just took in only to a region, but kind of going worldwide. And do you continue to do that, or are you kind of more just chilling in Mexico now?
Yeah. So what my whole object, I guess, when I originally quit my job and I was like, okay, I'm going to travel the world, I wanted to see everywhere and everything. And I wanted to try to find a place that maybe would make me want to settle down, that maybe would make me want to have a home base in it. Canada's not that place for me. I don't really identify with other Canadians. I don't really identify with the culture here. So it was kind of like a search. And I gave myself 10 years. I said, I'm going to travel for 10 years and let's see if I find a home base. I ended up finding one in Mazatlan, like I said, but I do still travel constantly. I'm probably on, oh my God, I would say 50 to 80 flights a year. So while Mazatlan is a home base, and while I honestly wish that I could spend so much more time there, my job still requires me to travel, and I still love to travel. So I kind of have this inner battle where I want to sit in Mazatlan and not go anywhere because I love it so much, but I also still have this incurable travel bug.
That's awesome. Are you in Mazatlan right now?
I'm not. I'm in Kelowna because I'm visiting family, but I'm headed back there in 13 days, and I like the countdown is on. I cannot wait.
No, I feel that that's the best time to go home and visit Canada's in the summer, right? So
Yeah, yeah, I can't come here in the winter. There's no way. So I can right now I'm actually in the RV. And so the RV is like so chill. It's such a tiny home kind of vibe, very easy to just pop in. It's on the lake. People love to come out to the lake in the summer. You're swimming, you're just seeing friends, you're having some drinks, whatever, and then back on my merry way.
So let's talk a little bit about Mazatlan and the state of Sinaloa. You said that you're really passionate about talking about it, so hopefully I can get you talking. Best seafood in the world, right?
Yeah, the mariscos in Mazatlan are amazing. All the nationals, like Mazatlan is full of nationals that are vacationing there, right? So you've got people from Mexico City, people from Durango, people from all over the country are coming
Hmm.
there to spend their vacation. And all of the Mexicans, they all say that Mazatlan has some of the best seafood in the world.
It's true. Everything from the sushi to aguachile to um, smoked marlin, literally everything. Eh?
Yeah, everything, everything. And every single foot you step, like if you're walking down the street, within say 10 or 20 steps, you'll encounter all these different seafood restaurants and carts selling seafood and sushi restaurants. They're just everywhere.
And it's so cheap. I spent like a month in Mazatlan earlier this year. Actually, I was there for Carnival.
Oh, were you?
Have you done Carnival
Every year. I mean,
every year?
it was paused during it was paused for 2021 because in 2020 I went, which was crazy because it was like February something 2020. And
Right.
then the week after Carnival, that's when everything shut down from COVID. And I was like, wait a second, I was just in a crowd of almost a million people. I think it was 900,000 people. And then there's this thing that is called COVID that just came on the stage. And I was like, whoa, this is nuts. So that was like my last hurrah party was Carnival.
hmm And I really really enjoyed Mazatlan, and I can definitely see how it's not only one of the best spots in Mexico, but probably one of the best spots in Latin America. It's unreal. I remember I couldn't believe how cheap the seafood was because like something a piece of seafood like that in Toronto or even Boston on the water would just be 10 times the cost. I'm talking like you get the full octopus with like all 12 tentacles like perfectly cooked up, and it'll be like $8 or something, and I'm just
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that
how?
sounds exactly right. Yeah.
Like normally in Canada it would be like at least like $35 for like three tentacles or something. And there you get like the whole thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
people are surprised when they come visit, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, you should get the pulpo." And then a whole octopus is on the plate, and they're always shocked. They're like, "Oh my god, this is not what I was expecting."
right. And then, yeah, maybe that's a graphic example for some people, but yeah, it's everything, right? I mean, I remember we did a fishing boat tour. We rented a boat. We had a crew of people. We went out fishing with some guides in a boat, and we caught a marlin that was literally as large as I am. It was easy. Like I don't want to exaggerate or whatever, but it was literally over 120 pounds for sure. And
Wow.
we took half of it. So you just kind of like cut the fish. We take like one side of the fish, and we took it all to ourselves, and then we gave a half to them. And just our half of the fish, we had like these like huge like burlap bags, and we were carrying it like it was like a dead body. Like I had it on I had I had one of the straps on my shoulder, and then my buddy had one of the straps on his shoulder, and we were like struggling to carry it between like two full grown men. And we're
Wow.
just like and it was like the trunk was like weighing down. uh
That's unbelievable.
and so the seafood is plentiful. It's unreal. I love seafood. Pacifico, the beer, is from Mazatlan, brewed
Yeah.
there. And I couldn't believe we went to like the baseball stadium, the Vanaus baseball stadium, and even in the stadium, a beer was only 20 or 25 pesos, which is
Yeah,
a
so it's like
dollar US. And I'm like,
yeah,
how can it be a dollar in the stadium?
right? It's perfect. It's just the most perfect city.
It's a good setup because I wouldn't because it's like almost like Mediterranean style climate. It's like pretty much swimmable year round.
Yeah.
Pretty moderate weather year round. It's not too tropical. It's actually quite dry.
Yeah,
It's like the
actually
most like livable year round city in Mexico on the beach, or one of them for sure.
I love the winters so much because, okay, before I set up a home base in Mazatlan, I was in Asia for a while. And I was in Indonesia and I was in Japan and I was in Vietnam. And I did tire from like, I got to a point where I didn't want to sweat, like sit in my sweaty clothes all day. You just,
Right, like rainy
after
season.
yeah, after it's 35 degrees Celsius and then you've got 90% humidity, your whole life is just sweating. It's really, and you're trying to seek shade and like find AC, and that's kind of what you do all day long. And I was kind of over it. And then I spent one winter in Mazatlan and it was so perfect. It didn't rain for one day for a whole 6 months. There was not one day of rain.
hmm
The daily high was like 23, 24 Celsius. It was really dry. It wasn't really humid at all. And the nights would even get kind of cool, like maybe an 18 or 19, where you might need a light jacket. It's sensational. It's just so comfortable and perfect.
And at what point did you say like Mazatlan is the place for me? Because you've been to a lot of places. I don't know, Croatia, whatever. Like how did you know why Mazatlan?
Oh, okay. So, I mean, it's a long list, but I'll make it short. um, it's a combination of everything, but I feel like Mazatlan has the highest quality of life. It's not the cheapest. We when we first embarked on this travel journey, we went and lived in Ecuador for 6 months, and Ecuador is, I think, cheaper, but the quality of life is just not there the way it is in Mazatlan. And so Mazatlan has things like, okay, for example, we have a condo that's in the golden zone, right in the middle of all the action, and it
Hmm.
has 300 fiber internet, 300 download.
Nice.
Super fast internet, and like I said about the climate, very, very temperate winters, just beautiful, beautiful weather. It's all nationals. So there's not a lot of foreign tourists yet, which I love because then you have so much language and culture and things just are not as spoilt as they are in some other major tourist cities of Mexico. And this will go against many people's opinions of Mazatlan and Sinaloa, but I find it incredibly safe as well. So there are countries that might be cheaper or maybe a little more off the beaten path, but they don't have the safety that Mazatlan and Sinaloa in general has, in my opinion. And I just find that the whole community, everyone that I've met there is so welcoming. They're so generous, everyone's so kind. And Mazatlan also has everything that you need. It's a huge city. The infrastructure's there. There's public transit, there's shopping malls, there's direct flights to LA, Phoenix, Dallas, Houston, Mexico City. You can get in and out really easily. It's just, I don't know, out of anywhere I've been, it just checks all the boxes. I don't think there's one that it actually doesn't check.
Hmm. Yeah, so let's talk a bit about safety. I find that's a pretty important quality to a lot of people, especially to the Canadians and Americans that might think about retiring or going to live in Mazatlan.
Mhm.
So they've probably heard about, the state of Sinaloa, of which Mazatlan is a part of, and heard sort of like negative things about the state of Sinaloa. How would you sort of uh, describe Mazatlan's place within the state of Sinaloa, like the differences, and then how would you describe like sort of the overall level of safety within Mazatlan?
So, I mean, obviously, I'm not a safety expert. I can only talk about my own personal, things that I've seen and heard and my personal experiences, right? But for 4 seasons now, we've been in Mazatlan, and it has been without any event, which is perfect. That's what you want, right? Um, my husband and I, we travel to Medellin, Colombia a lot. And when we're there, I love Medellin, I think it's an amazing city. But as people who go there a lot, you can't like walk down the street with your cell phone out. That's obviously asking for trouble. Um, in Mazatlan, you can walk around with your cell phone out at 1 o'clock in the morning, or me as a female, I can walk around in a short dress at 1 in the morning with my cell phone out, and nothing is going to happen to me. Everyone there is very polite, very respectful. Um, I've never been concerned. I've never had a worry. I've never felt unsafe in any way. I've never seen violence. I've never even heard of violence in the city. It's very removed from what people think of when they think of Sinaloa. It is a tourism city, right? It's a national tourism city, and the people in the city are very preoccupied and concerned with keeping it safe for tourists, for national
Mhm.
tourists or foreign tourists. They don't want anything to happen to visitors, of course, right?
For sure.
I think it's probably the most important thing on their checklist is like, let's just keep the city running smoothly, let's keep tourism dollars coming in, and that's wonderful. So it's when people tell me, like when I tell people, oh yeah, I live in Mazatlan, Sinaloa, and a lot of people always give me the craziest look. Like, what do you mean you live in Sinaloa? Especially if they're American, because America has the level 4 do not travel warning against the entire state of
Oh,
Sinaloa.
really?
Yeah, so a lot of people are very discouraged. And I guess my word to them is like, of course Sinaloa is famous for the cartel. And while that is a thing, you won't see it in your day to day life in Mazatlan. If you're not buying drugs or selling drugs, then you're not in any direct danger if you are in Mazatlan. It's you're
Hmm.
very far removed. It's like being in two separate worlds. But you can also travel around the state of Sinaloa. I've gone to Culiacan many times. I've gone to all the Pueblo Magicos around Mazatlan, and I've always felt safe on the road, safe on the highways. There's never been an issue. And
Hmm.
I have like a security, I guess, importance in my life. Like I've done lots of traveling. There have been many places where I have felt unsafe or I've been worried, and never has Mazatlan ever been on that list.
Hmm. Hmm. And for context for people, Culiacan is the capital of Sinaloa, where there is a little bit more of the riffraff. But I think what's important to point out is that like the state of Sinaloa, like there's no war between different groups. It's all just controlled by one group. So there's no one to like fight against. So
Exactly.
there's like everything's just kind of like organized, under control. It's pretty chill. They want Mazatlan to stay chill so that people keep coming. And it is nice to hear that you've had good experiences visiting the Pueblos Mágicos and kind of other smaller parts outside of Mazatlan as well, and
Yeah.
that the highways are like decent infrastructure, right? Like it's
They're
all
okay.
like,
I mean, they
yeah,
need a
like
bit of repair. They're toll, but actually, I have a funny story about the highway. So this also demonstrates it's kind of a safety story. So my parents, who are 75 years old, they came to visit me this year in Mazatlan, and they stayed for 2 months. And they found a flight that was out of Culiacan to Cabo. It was a direct flight. And they wanted to go to Cabo next. So we had a driver drive them from Mazatlan to Culiacan, which is about a 2.5 hour drive.
mhm.
And about 45 minutes into the journey, the car that they were in started leaking exhaust into the car. And
Oof.
so the driver had to leave them on the side of the road and go back to Mazatlan to get a different car and come back and pick them up later. So here are my 75-year-old parents. They do not speak Spanish. They, are very obviously white, obviously not from Mexico. They're on the side of the road between Mazatlan and Culiacan in a state where everyone tells them is so dangerous. And nothing, I mean, they were sitting there for a while. They were starting to get hungry, thirsty. Some guy was kind of near the highway. They flagged him down. They said in their broken Spanish, do you my dad was like, "Oh, you have some oranges. Like, can I have one?" And sorry, I don't have any money. Like, he's just like an old man, he's just trying to be a mooch. And this guy like gave my dad these oranges and took a picture with him, and it was so cute. And they sent me all this after the car had come back and picked them up. But all that happened to them was a Mexican guy took pity on them and gave them some of his oranges. But a lot of people think like, "Oh my God, that's so dangerous of them to be on that road. Like, I can't believe that happened." And they think it's so funny. Like, they have this picture with this guy and they got some fruit out of the deal. Like, they just thought it was part of the adventure.
I love it. I love it. Um, so I think another thing worth mentioning to everyone is that Mazatlan really is not well known to international travelers and even to Americans quite yet. And most of the tourism is internal tourism from Mexicans from other places.
Mhm.
I definitely met quite a bit of like retirees. There's apparently like a Canadian flea market somewhere. Have you been to that? I heard about it, but I never went.
No, I haven't.
There's like this Canadian flea market in the something like that, and it's up. I think it's in Sabalo. I could be wrong, but there is something like that, and you will see like Canadians rocking like Winnipeg Jets jerseys and stuff
Oh
like
yeah.
that in the winter. Yeah, I feel like it's really mostly an older crowd. Like I don't really hear about digital nomads going to Mazatlan. I don't hear about young like I don't know, like stag parties or something. I don't really hear about that. It's more retirees, and I think overall I think there's going to be a lot of growth in the next couple of years as more and more people hear about this very ideal city.
I can't believe that there's not. And as I travel and I talk to other young nomads and they say, "Oh, where do you live?" I tell them about Mazatlan. They say, "I've never heard of it," of course. And once I describe it to them, they're always so intrigued, but they still don't come. And I don't understand why. And I, like you said, I haven't seen any other young nomads there. There's almost none. And while there are lots of retirees, there's still such a small fraction of the population. Like in Puerto Vallarta, I mean, so many retirees live there. And in
Mhm.
Mazatlan, there's only I don't know the amount, but let's throw out a number. Let's say it's 10,000. And the population of Mazatlan is pretty big. I think it's around 750,000 right now.
Mhm.
So there's such a small minority. But for young people, let's say people under 40, I think there might be a handful, like maybe 20, maybe 20 of us. And I'm baffled as to why. I'm so baffled because the internet is fast. The prices are great. It's a coastal city. The food is absolutely phenomenal. And it has good flights in and out. I honestly have no idea why it hasn't blown up. I think the only thing I can think of is that the accommodation isn't quite there. So while there's tons of really cute cafes to work out of, there are not that kind of Selena or kind of hostel type accommodation yet. It doesn't exist.
Right.
And so I feel like people don't get drawn to it because they don't find like the cute Instagrammy kind of hotel online. The hotels are very traditional still. They're very Mexican. And so, yeah, that might be the one thing that's kind of discouraging people, but yeah, I'm puzzled.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think and there are I think in the winter there are some direct flights from Canada. I think there might be a few from Calgary.
Yeah.
Um but yeah.
There's
Uh
there's swoop flies from Edmonton and Abbotsford, and then WestJet flies from Vancouver and Calgary direct. And then Sunwing, they have those charters and they leave from Regina, Saskatoon, Winnipeg, Edmonton, and another city. So there's lots of ways to get in from Canada as well during any time between kind of November and April. But again, I don't know. I don't see young people coming.
mhm.
But there's lots of young nationals. All of my Mexican friends, they're all very young and they have businesses there. Some are architects, some are plastic surgeons, some are spin instructors. And so there's lots of young people there and there's lots of young energy there. There's just not a lot of foreign young nomads.
I think it's going to continue to grow as there's more and more direct flights. And to your like point about accommodation, I do think from a logistics perspective, Mazatlan actually is quite good logistically and in terms of accommodation because the coastline is very large and there's beach the whole way. So there's really a lot of beach and there's quite a lot of like houses. Like the city is built on like there's mountains in the background, but the city is actually built on a very flat part leading up to the water, and so there's really like a lot of like normal sort of Mexican style houses that are being used as Airbnbs. There's tons and tons of new hotels being built, like tall buildings, like right along the water. And so it doesn't really come up against these like natural constraints that you'll see happen in Vallarta, where I think Vallarta is a little bit more limited in terms of supply just because of like it's so hilly and mountainous.
Hmm.
Whereas I think Mazatlan's a little bit easier to build there. Cabo kind of has the same problem that Vallarta has as well. But I think Mazatlan, like if you were in like the construction industry or something, I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, there's so many buildings under construction right now. There's about 60 tower condo buildings that are currently under construction. And a lot of big brands like Dreams Resort is going to be opening up a big resort in Mazatlan. And there's some other brands that have just opened, like the Marriott is opening this winter. And there's just it's growing like crazy. It's actually growing really, really fast. So I think you're right when you say that people will kind of get drawn to it eventually. Um, it's just that I'm really shocked that it hasn't happened already. Like, I'm so glad I found it because it's such a gem, but I do believe that it deserves more notoriety.
Yeah, I think so too. I think both Mazatlan and then Guaymas up the coast there
Yeah.
have both been growing a lot because I think like Guaymas is like drivable from parts of the states, like from Arizona and stuff. And then Mazatlan, of course, is growing a lot. Um, you can even fly to Guadalajara and take the bus to Mazatlan. And it's like a 6 hour bus ride. It's not too bad. I've done it a couple
Yeah.
times. Um, so you chose to base up in the Zona Dorada, which is like the main like gringo party area.
Yeah.
um, and as like a married couple, I think that's kind of funny. Why did you choose Zona Dorada? And do you find that it's a bit of like a ghost town during the week when there's not too many Mexicans there?
Oh my gosh, you know what? I find that Mazatlan is like a magnet for Mexican tourists right now. I don't think there's ever a moment where it's not completely filled with nationals on vacation. Not one moment of the day. And where I live, I'm right in the center of the Zona Dorada. Like you couldn't be any more central than where I am. And so it's constantly all I hear is pulmonillas, which are the golf carts for people who don't know. It's like these souped up golf carts that are kind of used
Yeah.
as open air taxis.
Blasting banda music.
Blasting music. I hear the banda bands on the beach because I'm beachfront. And yes, sometimes there's like little gringo parties. I live near this bar called 28, which the gringos love to go to. I don't really hang around with gringos. I don't really hang around at the gringo hotspots, but sometimes we hear like their live karaoke nights and stuff. So where I live is not for the faint of heart. If you're bothered by noise, you would definitely need to move. I have to wear earplugs every night because it's so loud, but I love it. I actually just love it because it's got so much vibe and so much passion, and just you can feel the energy of the city. And so where I live, I don't ever feel like it's a ghost town. I feel like it's full all the time. And we picked that area because we wanted, okay, as we've been traveling the last 8 years, one of our biggest pet peeves is when we end up in an area where you kind of feel trapped and you have to take taxis or you have to take cars, and
Right.
it's not conducive to like walking around and getting things easily. I think convenience, especially as we're entrepreneurs and we're building a business, we need to have a certain amount of convenience. And so where I live, within like I would say a 5 minute walk, I can go to the dry cleaner, the tailor, the bank, 10 of my favorite
Groceries.
restaurants, the beach, whatever I need is within this, not even a 10-minute walk. Like really, it's probably a 3 minute walk because I'm right in the heart of everything. And the payoff for that is so much better than say a quiet, gated community. Like I don't want to live in that. I want to live right in the middle of it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I was staying in the part just slightly south, where the I guess it's called Teleria, where those like lakes are, kind of like right across from the stadium,
Yeah.
like beachfront.
Yep.
And there's all these there's like this big sort of parking lot behind it that borders along the little lake there. And
Hmm.
the police and people just park their cars there and they blast music and chill. And then the police always comes by and they make the most insane noise to make the people like vacate the parking lot. And between that and like the carts like blasting banda, it can be pretty loud. It can be pretty loud in the main city area, but you can always get around that by going out to Sabalo or even further out to Cerritos.
Cerritos, yeah.
Yeah.
See, that for me personally, I would rather not live in Mazatlan. If I had to live in Cerritos, if someone was like, "Okay, you can't live in Zona Dorada anymore, you have to go out there," I would not want to live in the city. That is so far for me. And while the places are, you can get a nice big house, it's very quiet. For me, that just takes everything that's special about Mazatlan away. So
Mhm.
I would rather live in a different country.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think Mazatlan has a really unique culture. It has a unique place in the minds of Mexicans as well. A lot of the famous sort of singers and actors have come from Mazatlan. Banda music is basically from Mazatlan. Um, all over Mexico, there's like a chain called Sushi Tlan, where it's like a chain of sushi restaurants, and so the soccer team is like in the first division. So Mazatlan is definitely known within Mexico, and I think it's just and extremely popular among Mexicans, which is a good sign. Like if it's popular among Mexicans, then the gringos will catch on.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And you're right. They have a baseball team, they have a soccer football team, and they have so many other things. Like there's orchestras that play in the Angela Peralta Theater in Centro, and they host Carnival every year, which is one of the biggest carnivals in all of Latin America, in the world. I
Hmm.
think it's the third
Hmm.
or fourth biggest. There's
Yep.
always something going on. There's always something to do constantly, and it's also a great place to live because it's got the schools and the hospitals and the roads and everything that you need for good infrastructure as well. So it's kind of the perfect city to build a business. But even if you're a young family, some people have been moving down with kids and they're just loving it because there is so much to do. The weather is so perfect and the safety is there, especially compared to many American cities and compared to other places in Latin America.
Hmm. Yeah, I'll name a couple more things about Mazatlan that I like, just because we've almost made this like a Mazatlan episode, and then maybe we'll move on to talk about travel off path and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Pretty big for medical tourism. I remember when I came in, I sat on the flight and then ended up splitting a cab with an older American gentleman that was doing some, like, he was doing dental work that would have cost over $20,000 in the States. Flew down to Mazatlan and it cost him, I don't know, $2,000 to $3,000. So pretty popular for that. Um, I like that. I like that the Olas Altas, it's called, which is like the historic center of the city, really has quite a lot of colonial Spanish style architecture,
Hmm.
and so it has a lot of that vibe. So the city does have like an older element to it. It's not just like a brand new shiny glass city on the beach. I like that it has some character to it, and
Yeah, thank
a lot of the best like restaurants, a little bit of the nightlife, a lot of the expats too choose to base up in Ola Salta. So it's kind of often you're presented with sort of the dilemma, like, do I base in Olas Altas, the historic center, or do I go, more towards the Zona Dorada, the Golden Zone, which is like the new kind of nightlife and happening area. So those are kind of like the two extremes. There's the lighthouse, the Faro de Mazatlan, and you can go hiking there, and it's awesome views and stuff like that. A couple really cool things. I'll stop there if you had thoughts on the historic center.
I love Centro. I really do. I would also live down there because it's very walkable. It's very beautiful. It looks like you're in Europe. Like you said, lots of colonial buildings. It is also a perfect area of town. It's just very different from Zona Dorada, but it's nice to have both in one city. Like you can have everything. You don't just have to pick one. You can have that modern city, but you can also have this historic beauty of a city. And that's what I
Mhm.
love about Mazatlan so much is you get both. Like you get everything.
Yep. And don't skip Stone Island. You take a little ferry from the center over to Stone Island, which is just on the other side. And I think like the first month I was in Mazatlan, I didn't go. And then I finally went and I was like, oh, I can't believe I didn't go earlier because it's so cool. Like the beach was so nice. And there was all these like stands where it was like buckashuck oysters and like awesome seafood places. And I really enjoyed Stone Island.
Yeah, it's a really nice place and it's very chill. It's very different from the rest of the city. So, yeah, I like to take guests there.
And we rode horses there. They had a couple horse, I guess, rental places where you get a little guide. And I could not believe how cheap it was to ride horses. I went with a girl, Mexican girl, so she kind of helped negotiate. We got on horses with this like legendary old guy. It was just the two of us and the guy, and we were riding with all these horses along the beach. And I swear to God, for like a half hour ride, we pay. I don't even think we paid $10. I think we might have paid like 120 pesos or something. It
Yeah,
was
it's wild.
absurd. I couldn't believe it. I was like, that is unreal. Okay, I'll give you another one. Also taking a boat out to the island, facing Zona Dorada is really cool.
Deer Island.
Yep, Deer Island, Isla de Venaos, which is really cool. We did the hike up to the top. Apparently, there's like some cave paintings, like somewhere in a cave on the island. I didn't have time to do that because I didn't have a guide. Have you ever seen that?
No, but I know that up near Cerritos, like if you keep going, then there's those hieroglyphics that are
There
in
is.
stones. Yeah.
Out of town. Yeah, there's some cool like ancient like native history too in Mazatlan. So you kind of have like a bit of like ancient native history. You have the colonial history, and now kind of the new Mazatlan. The other
And
thing that's really cool, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
one of the best ways to see the history of Mazatlan, like you're saying, the ancient history and then kind of the more modern history, is to go to the new observatory. And so it opened last year, and it's right near El Faro. It's down in the south, and you can go to the observatory and they'll take you on this really cool tour, but it starts with this 10-minute video that's all about Mazatlan, and it's one of the best videos I've ever seen, and it really encapsulates and kind of summarizes everything about its history, and where the native people came from that first inhabited the area. And the observatory is kind of a must see. I always bring guests there. I've been there a million times. I never get sick of going. It's one of the nicest places in the whole city.
Oh, that's awesome. And then I guess maybe one of the last things before we switch it up is when I was done with my time in Mazatlan, I was like, huh, should I continue on to Culiacan? Or I learned that there's a ferry to La Paz, to the Baja Peninsula.
Yeah.
And it's an overnight ferry. I think it's about 12 hours. You rent, a bunk for, I don't know if it's $50 a night, and you get like a two-bed room in the overnight ferry. And we did that. We took the ferry from Mazatlan to La Paz to Baja, continued on doing kind of like an awesome sort of tour around the Baja Peninsula. But another kind of huge benefit to Mazatlan is like that is where the ferry is. And so you're very connected to the Baja Peninsula. You can go to Cabo. And really, what a lot of people do is they'll come down from British Columbia or from California, and they'll cross in San Diego to Tijuana, and they'll take the Baja Peninsula the whole way down. It's like 18 hours of driving. The Baja Peninsula is way bigger than you think it is, and they'll take it all the way to the end, which is La Paz, basically, and then they'll take the ferry there from La Paz to Mazatlan to the mainland, and then once they get to Mazatlan, then they'll sort of disperse somewhere on the mainland. So you'll see all kinds of bikers. You'll see even like Europeans doing it. So I think that's another like awesome benefit of the ferry being in Mazatlan.
Yeah, it is. It's really more accessible than people think. But I think that you're right, because before you said it does need a few more direct flights, and I think that that is the key.
Hmm. Yeah, I gotta love Mazatlan. I'm hyping it up. Oh, so do you rent your place or did you guys buy a place there?
We rent right now, so we've been in the same building. This is our fourth year in the same building. We want to buy, but to be honest, like the real estate prices there are going crazy. They've gone up so much since we first started going. I would say they've doubled. Like for the exact same condo, they've doubled in price. We still don't think that it's a waste of money. We really do want to invest. We're
Mhm.
just kind of really picky. I think we might want to stay in the same building that we're in. So we're just waiting for the right one to become available. We might buy the one we're renting. But I still think that it's the real estate is a good deal, especially when you compare it to other coastal Mexican cities. It's still very much lower. But yeah, it's been climbing a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, I've definitely thought about it. Since it is on the water, you would need to do a fideicomiso if you're not a
Yeah.
Mexican citizen. So you have to set up like a trust structure. Pretty easy to do, but has a bit of a cost associated with it. What if you don't mind me asking, like, are you guys have you gotten like a temporary or permanent residency in Mexico?
Yeah, we've got our permanent residency.
That's awesome. Was it temp for a while first, or
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of I may or may not be in that same situation where I'm on the temp and hopefully renew it as permanent at some time in the future.
Exactly. I wish I could walk you through the process, but I'm so bad with remembering any of that kind of stuff. I'm kind of like my brain can't hold technical information like that. It goes in one ear and out the other. So I wish I had some tips and some, I could talk about the differences between them, but I'm really, I have no idea.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about travel off path.
Yeah.
Your extremely highly successful travel website blog, one of the largest independent news sites in the world. Um, I saw that your YouTube goes back like 7 years, the one associated with Travel Off Path. How long ago did you start the website itself?
So it would have been 2015 that we started the website. And when we started the website, it was more of a travel blog. And that's where I think we kind of went wrong. So I think everybody wanted to be a travel blogger back then. It was a very common thing to say you're starting. And Trevor and I were just, we were sharing our journey. So we were sharing where we were going, where we were traveling, kind of making travel guides based on our own experiences. But we kind of found that people don't really care about your journey. Maybe if you're already famous or you already have a big following, it's maybe easier to transition into sharing your own personal journey. But for the most part, we just didn't get a lot of traction. It grew, but it just wasn't very big. But as
Hmm.
soon as we pivoted into more of a travel news, that's when we really started to grow. And I think it's because we, instead of saying, okay, us and our journey, it was more about, okay, this is how you can do it, or here's news that's relevant to you. Here's stuff that's
Hmm.
actually going to help you in your travels. And when we focused off of us onto our readers, then that's when we kind of exploded. And then obviously COVID helped to bump us up even more.
Makes sense. And for context for people, I saw that you guys go super hard. Like today, you guys published 6 articles. Yesterday, you published 5 articles. You have all different writers. Um, yeah, a lot of output.
We do. We publish anywhere from 4 to 12 articles per day, and that's on Travel Off Path. And then we have a couple sister sites that are niche sites. So we have one called the Cancun Sun. It's all Cancun travel news. We have the Cabo Sun, obviously Cabo, and we have the Bali Sun, which is all based out of Bali. And so with those sites, we're publishing around 6,000 articles a year across all of our sites. So the frequency is, you're right, it's very high. We do go hard because news is ever changing and news has to be super relevant and it has to come out very, very fast. So these are all timely things and there's just no slowing down. So there's no breaks. It's just a constant flow of information, constant publishing.
I like the idea of almost having like a media conglomerate. You guys got Off Path Enterprises. You got a couple companies underneath the what do you call it?
Umbrella?
uh, yeah, like umbrella, yeah, conglomerate. So I do think that's pretty cool. How do you manage to do so much output? Like, how did you originally find your writers? Was it like Upwork? Do you have full time writers at this point, or how do you do that?
Thankfully, we haven't had much turnover at all. Most of our writers have been with us for a long time. We either got them from Upwork or we did actually just get people that were readers, people that read the site all the time and they just said, "Hey, I love traveling. I wonder if there's an opportunity with you guys." All of our writers are pretty much full time travelers. They're all constantly in different countries, they're all around the world, which is great because then it really helps our news to be super relevant because they're eyes on the ground, right? They're not just people like sitting at home in Canada that have never traveled. These are people right now. One of our
Mhm.
guys is in Buenos Aires. We've got another person in Bangkok. We've got another guy that right now he's in Rome. So they're very, very spread out. But we've been so lucky that, yeah, it's either been readers or Upwork, but they've stayed with us for a while. And my husband and I still write, just not as frequently. It used to just be us. It was we were a two pony show, and then as we started growing, we realized we can't publish ourselves at this frequency. There's no way because we couldn't even take an hour off of the day. So now with a team, it's a lot easier to keep a very consistent schedule and keep our quality super high. But it's definitely, I think growth has been one of the trickier parts because we had to go from, okay, we're running travel off path to, okay, now we're managing travel off path. And so the shift from being a writer into being a manager and being an editor in chief has been an interesting journey, but it's still one that I like.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And so if you don't mind me asking, like how do you actually structure your incentives for your writers? Do you pay them per word, per article, per 1,000 words, monthly stipend? Like how do you do that?
So we do a per article. There's a set price, and their articles, they just have to be a minimum of, say, 700 words, and then it's a per price per article. And the longer the writer has been with us, the higher per article they get paid because they get better at their job. They get better at finding stories. They're less reliant on us to make their headlines or to give them story ideas. And so we do, kind of reward that longevity. And then also they get bonused. So if their articles get more than 20,000 views, then they do also receive a bonus. And so that helps to try to keep quality up because they always want to write things that are good, that are helpful, that people want to
Mhm.
share and that are actually helping our readers. And when that happens, then they get rewarded.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I noticed that you have the writers, I guess, using their names on the articles.
Mhm.
Is that because are you like allowing them to sort of like build a brand a little bit, or why do you sort of like specify who the writer is?
I think it's really important. I think it's important for people to be proud of the things that they write and also to be transparent in the things that they write because we are writing travel news. We want it to be accurate, we want it to be correct, but we also want them to build a portfolio. We know that our writers won't be with us forever. I wish that they would, especially the ones we have now. We absolutely love them. But one day, what if they want to open up their own site? And then that's going to have to be something that they're going to do. And we fully support that. So I think it's really important that they kind of have an identity while they're with us.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then you do a mix of like evergreen and news content, right? Because news is tough because you're trying to keep up with the news cycle, and then you probably experience like a lot of drop off after interest in the topic dies. How do you think about the news cycle versus evergreen?
Yeah, so that's exactly why we do a combination. So you're right, news is very fast. So, say for example, today we posted that France removed all of their entry requirements. And people are going to be very interested in that for today, tomorrow, maybe the next day. But after that, it becomes common knowledge and people aren't going to see that article much anymore. It kind of becomes buried. So that's why it's important that when we have very relevant news articles, we also have that evergreen content, the kind of content that people can come back to time after time, and it's still very relevant for a while. Let's say it's, 10 hidden things to do in Seattle, or maybe it's you need to try out these 20 packing tips the next time you need to check a bag, whatever. Those are articles that are going to be useful for people for obviously a longer time, and then for us, for the site, we have this mixture of these spikes of traffic for very viral, relevant news articles, and then a slow hum of traffic for the evergreen content. So, with the two together, we always have people on the site, we always have eyeballs reading the articles, and it allows us to have some sort of predictability, I guess, for the month.
Hmm. And I have like a burning question, and hopefully this isn't too inside baseball, but so let's just say you're paying someone like $10 for a 1,000 word article, right? And you're only really, and the majority of the traffic is coming within like 3 days or something.
Mhm.
Um, how is that article like worth the money it costs to produce? Because like I just don't see how that amount of how the traffic can make it a can make it profitable based on like the affiliate or whatever, the whole package around that article.
It's actually such a good question. And you're right. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we lose money on an article. We might pay the writer a certain amount, and then the article only has traffic for sometimes only a few hours. It might only be 6 hours. It might not even be a day or 2 days. And that will be a loss. But then we'll have an article that might go super viral and it's in a killer gain. And so at the end of the day, it doesn't work out that it's a profitable site. So it doesn't matter if we lose on some because we know we're going to gain on some. And with the evergreen content, that really helps us because we usually can make a little bit more than what we pay for those evergreen articles. So that kind of keeps us at this nice kind of homeostasis with income earning. But the rest of it is very unpredictable with the news stories. The news stories are sometimes they're such a home run, it's incredible. And sometimes they're a super flop. And then
Hmm.
that's also part of our job. So Trevor and I act as editor in chief now for the site, and we really try to keep our quality up. So if a writer pitches us a story idea that we think is going to be a flop, then we just say no. Or if we think of a really good story idea, we'll feed it to our writers. And that way they can turn it into something that's amazing. So it's kind of our job to like make sure we don't have too many flops.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So I know on your media page, you're willing to talk about building a profitable blog and brand, but I also don't want to, be too I want to be respectful of your privacy at the same time. But like, what is the for a website like yours? What is the breakdown between like ad revenue, affiliate revenue, and within affiliates? Like, what are the more profitable affiliates? I imagine hotels might be number one.
Yeah, it's, for our breakdown, it's going to look so different from everyone else's. And the reason is kind of embarrassing. The reason is because we really are awful at affiliates. We've been so bad. I actually need to hire like a CMO or something because we're missing such a big opportunity. We have a ton of traffic, but we don't do as much with affiliates as we should. So I would say 90% of our income is through display advertising. So those are the ads that you see when you're reading an article and then, an ad pops up between
Hmm.
two paragraphs. That's where we're making most of our money. And while it's amazing, it's kind of dangerous because the internet can change at any time, right? And so we want to diversify more into affiliate. And you're right. So the affiliate breakdown is going to be about 50% with sort of hotels, other tourism based things, and 50% with products like travel insurance. We sell Safety Wing, which is one of our biggest travel insurance, and Heymondo. We really like those two brands, and they bring us kind of the biggest chunk of our affiliate marketing. And then for hotels, we align ourselves a lot with Expedia Group. So that's through Expedia and hotels.com to refer people to their products because
Hmm.
we know that they do have good pricing and they're a good product as well. So that's kind of where the affiliate is, but they only account for about 10%.
And do you guys use Mediavine or AdThrive?
We use Mediavine. Yeah.
Okay. And you do try to build an email list as well. Like what kind of content do you put on the email list? Do you just sort of like repurpose the blog articles, or do you have email list specific content?
Yeah, we do. It's very specific content, actually. And we just started our email list this year. We started it in June. So it's brand new. And we have a weekly newsletter that comes out. It's called The Upgrade. And The Upgrade has one upgrade deal of the week. So we'll find some flight that you can upgrade to business class for kind of next to nothing. And then it has three sections. The first section is the top news stories of the week. So in case you missed it on the site, we kind of put the top 5 to 8 news stories that happened this past week. The next one is called You've Arrived, and it's a destination highlight. So we pick a new place somewhere in the world that's really cool, and we kind of give you the lowdown. Like, here's what the weather's like, here's how much it costs to live there, here's the best months to go, and here's where you should stay. And some cool examples of neat hotels in every budget. And then finally, we've got Check In, which is our hotel news. So we'll talk about new hotels opening around the world, or if there's like a really cool stay, like I don't know, staying in an igloo, or maybe there's like a really cool tree yurt or something that you can cozy up in for a few days, and we'll put that in there. So it's very newsletter specific. We write it every week, and we write it specifically for that. The only thing that we link to is the news stories back to the site. Otherwise, it's content that is fresh.
Makes sense. So any listeners, traveloffpath.com, go sign up for Kashlee's newsletter. um, So what do you do to get your articles out there? Like obviously you're ranking pretty well in SEO, but I don't really see you tweeting the articles like too much or anything. Like where else do you go to like drive traffic?
So we've always just this is I mean, I don't think I'm a good example, right? I think we've done things wrong a lot. So we're kind of an example of messy can work sometimes. So on our Twitter and on our Facebook pages, we just literally put the articles. We don't post anything else. And I know that people would be like, "Oh my god, why are you doing that? You're ruining your social accounts." But I feel like people that just want the news, maybe they just want to follow us because they just want the news. Maybe they don't want a meme from us. Maybe they don't want a conversation going on back and forth
Right.
from us. They just want to see the news stories. So on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook pages, we just post whatever the new articles are that day. That's it. And then we do have a Facebook group, and it's called the Travel Off Path Community. It's about 15,000 people, and they're
Saw
all
that.
diehard travelers. In there is where we have conversations, we post tips, things like that, and other travelers ask questions and talk with each other. So between the group and the social media channels, that makes up about 30% of our traffic. The other sort of 60-70% is just organic Google search.
And so is that 30%? So it's the Facebook group, it's Twitter, and then would anything else? Would that be the
Yeah,
Pinterest too?
we have Instagram, and then we also have a Facebook page. So like Travel Off Path has a Facebook page. So does the Bali Sun. So does the Cancun Sun. And even
Uh-huh.
though we just post the articles, they actually get a lot of engagement. Like there's lots of people that love to talk in the comments on there. They're kind of active pages, regardless that people will tell you that's the wrong way to use social media.
Right. No, I get that because people want to talk about the restrictions and can I do this, XYZ. Makes
Yeah.
sense. How do you think about Instagram? Because you, your husband, and the Travel Off Path brand all have like pretty big Instagrams. Like they're all in the tens of thousands of followers. But you can't obviously like link really to articles or to the site. How do you use Instagram to your benefit?
We don't really get like a ton of traffic from Instagram. And Instagram, I don't want to say it's a dying platform. I like to use it personally. I love to use stories. So on my account, on my Kashlee account, I just post wherever I'm traveling, which is always somewhere. Literally every week I'm in a different place. So I'm always just posting stories about that. Same thing with my husband. He doesn't really do it as much anymore. And then the Travel Off Path Instagram account, we just post the stories, like the travel news stories of the day, and then in the stories section, we just link to whatever news article is new that day. And I think people just follow it, like I said, because they just want to get the news.
Oh,
But
true.
we
Because yeah, because you have over 10K followers, so you can link in your
Yeah,
stories.
yeah, so we can link to it, but to tell you the truth, it doesn't drive like a ton of traffic. We kind of just keep it up for the people that are there, the people that do look at it every day and use it. But, we don't do reels and we don't do videos and we don't have a TikTok, and we're probably doing ourselves a disservice from not having those and not being active on those platforms. But also I feel like there's a thing is spreading yourself too thin. And I really want to get correct, helpful, relevant travel news out to readers. I don't necessarily want to like twirl around in a dress and, try to get a lot of attention on reels. Even if it would get me a ton of followers and would get me a lot more money in brand deals, I'd rather just give the people what they really, really want. And that's like how to travel, how to like navigate this crazy travel world and how to do it better?
Yeah, I definitely respect that as an entrepreneur. Focus on dialing in what you're good at, not spreading yourself too thin. I think that's
Yeah.
smart. Real quick on Pinterest. I mean, I did see that you guys have it a little bit. Have you been doing anything with that? I asked because my Latin life has a Pinterest, but I haven't done too much with it in a while.
So a
But
few
I know
years
it used to drive a lot of traffic.
Yeah. So right before the pandemic in 2019, I was using Pinterest a lot because I was doing a ton of evergreen, really, really evergreen stuff. And I took a course and it said you have to use Pinterest. It's like the best thing in the world. So I started putting pins of these evergreen, these huge travel guides and these like packing guides and things. I was doing the pins at the bottom of those articles and then pinning them. And it was giving us some traffic. I would never say a ton, but it was substantial enough to keep going. And then COVID hit. And a lot of our news was around, this country closes borders or this country is now demanding PCR test. And there's not really a pin that you can do with that. So we kind of just stopped doing it. And I haven't touched Pinterest since 2019. So there's still some old pins out there that give us some traffic. But now, I don't know. I feel like, again, kind of like dying platform, I feel like I'm not going to go back on it. I probably won't make pins. And I probably won't even hire an assistant to make pins because I
Hmm.
feel like if we just really write good content that is for human beings, Google picks it up and they reward us SEO wise. So we just want to focus on that, I think.
Right. Quick question about articles. So, do you have your writers just write the article in pure text and then someone else goes in and does like internal linking and affiliate links and, photos and putting it on the site? Or do you have one person do kind of all that?
Yeah, they upload them it's like built on WordPress, right? So they just
Right.
go in and they write it and they upload it, they put in photos. they're so good with interlinking because they've been with us for years. So they know the other articles that are relevant they can link to because they probably wrote them. Or they
Okay.
they know the site so well. Like we're so blessed. I like love them all. I'm gonna send a voice note to everyone after this call and be like, by the way, I love you. Um, but so they do all of that, and then we don't really affiliate link too much. Like I said, it's a big missed opportunity for us. I would say 95% of our articles do not have an affiliate link inside of them. So if there's a really natural place, I might add it later, but I don't ever expect the writers to do that. And it's something that, I mean, I will do more of, but I don't want our site just to be affiliate, like buy this, buy this, buy this. I'd rather have people just love and learn something than make more money sometimes, which I know sounds really anti entrepreneur and like anti capitalist. I am about making a profit. I just don't want to do it at the demise of the reader.
Yeah, no, 100% makes sense. Um, Another question about like off-path enterprises. So you probably have tons of ideas about spinning up other niche websites. How do you think about like the investment or commitment that takes? Do you say like we're going to do 100 or 300 articles and consider that an investment of whatever 10K, and then hopefully it'll like break even 6 months from now? Or how do you like how do you think about that?
Yeah, so each site takes about 6 months to become break even. So when we opened up the Bali Sun 3 years ago, it was right before the pandemic. Cancun Sun was about 16 months ago, and Cabo Sun was about 6 months ago. So we know from the pattern of these four sites that we have now, it's about a 6 month period until they can break even. And so, of course, our goal is going to be to open up other niche sites, but it does get more tricky because then there's only there's only two of us, right? So how can we manage these sites and make sure that the news is correct and relevant, and not scale too big too fast? So we always want to make sure that if we are going to open up more, then we would have an editor in chief that's specialized in that area. So, like, let's just say it's going to be Medellin, Colombia next. We'd make sure that we have somebody that's on the ground in Medellin that can be verifying these stories, because it's really important. I mean, the news has to be correct and relevant. It has to be super super, um, you know, perfect for that area. Otherwise, people aren't going to come and read it every day. It can't just be a bunch of fluff.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. I mean, Kashlee, I gotta give you a lot of credit out there. You know, a lot of the actually dialogue at like a national level is around how there's no like real journalism going on, and you're kind of doing that a little bit. You know, you're spending time on these government websites. You're going to primary sources. You're not just recycling things. You're really, you know, doing the real work and providing people with real information that for some reason they can't really get from mainstream outlets anymore.
Yeah, thank you. That means a lot. We really do try. And COVID kind of gave us that slap in the face that we needed to be different, because I feel like prior to that, we were probably a little bit more mainstream like everybody else. And then once we realized that when we do the work and we go to the source and we find these stories, that's when the readers share and comment and like, because they're getting different information. They're getting something that's fresh or something that's new, or it helped them uncover something they couldn't find themselves. And once that happens, it's like you just put in a little bit more elbow grease, you just put in a little bit more dedication, and it will actually just make your company explode. It makes your reputation so much bigger. So we definitely want to keep that ideology and sort of that kind of momentum, going forward. So that's like a big, big part of why we still do this every day.
For sure. I mean, people are making decisions based on your information. They might see, oh, like, well, in years past, to be like, oh, is the quarantine 14 days or is it 5 days? Do I need this document or that document? And it can really change people's travel plans. And they have to think, okay, can I trust this website? Is this more legit than the other website that seems to be a month old with the data? And I 100% back that idea of doing the primary research and really, really staying on top of it.
Yeah, yeah, we try our best. And of course, have we been wrong? Yeah. But have we been mostly right? Definitely. I would say out of anybody, we've been almost perfect. So, and we've really prided ourselves on that.
Hmm. There's been a recent trend of sort of like AI generated content, and I almost feel like news sites could potentially work well for that because if you can just sort of scrape the government websites and see when updates come out, then you would sort of know when the updates come out in a much more like automated way and make articles that can be uh, they're almost like cookie cutter to some extent. Like, have you thought about bringing in like AI elements to what you do?
You know, we have because we've heard about that. And the answer for us is absolutely not, because I'll tell you why. While it could be like a great way to get information, even if the information is just delivered to us first, the problem with it is that it's not written for human beings. Government websites are the most confusing, puzzling, maddening, frustrating sites in the world. Trust me, I've been reading them for 2.5 years nonstop every single day of my life. I'm ready to pull my hair out. They are ridiculous. And so I couldn't imagine taking that information and giving that to our readers. It's impossible to understand. Most of them are written at this like academic level English that nobody even knows how to read. And so we try to deliver news to people on like a grade 4 reading level. Like we want to take the news and just make it so simple that you could read it by scanning your eyeballs down the page and get the gist of what we're trying to say. So the whole AI thing is frightening because it's not delivering the information to the reader the way that we want to do it. And I don't know, I feel like it would just take me more time to try to rewrite the information that the AI would give me than it would be for me just to find the information myself. So we would never implement anything like that because we really want to keep that level of humanity there, and we want to make sure that we're writing our stuff so that people can just so simply digest it.
Definitely. Last one or two questions. Um, so, as a female entrepreneur, I find that in the travel space, it seems to be like quite male dominated, at least in certain niches, like Nomad Capitalist. You go to the Nomad Capitalist conference, it's like 90% men. Like, how do you see things like from your perspective? Do you find that you have a more balanced audience, and what do you do to like inspire women to travel?
I feel like our audience is, from all of our metrics, we're pretty much 50-50 between male and female readers, which makes me really happy because you're right. Some of them can be like super bro sites, especially with digital nomads. I find for some reason for remote workers and digital nomads, it's all dudes. It's like all crypto guys or it's all tech dudes. I feel like there's not a lot of females in that space yet, or at least they're not being vocal about being in that space.
Hmm.
And so for our readers, it being 50-50 is such a joy. I love that because then we can make sure that our writers are delivering articles that are for everybody, that it's not just for a small, small niche of people. And then for me, even though I'm married, we both travel separately lots because we have a travel empire to run and we can't always be traveling together. Sometimes we have to divide and conquer. And so whenever I'm traveling solo, I love to share that like on Instagram. I don't really share it as much on the site because I don't really find it as newsworthy unless I find a great city that I think is perfect for female solo travel and then I'll write an article about it. But I love to be an advocate for people, especially female solo travelers, for just to let them know like you can get out there. There's almost nowhere in this world that you can't go. There's so many places that I've gone that people have been like, oh, that's unsafe. I can't believe you're going there. And they've turned out to be quite the opposite. Like, okay, for example, I was just in Albania for 3 weeks with some other girls. And it's crazy that people think that, like, Albania, of all places, so many people said to me, what are you talking about? You're going to Albania. That's the country that was from the movie Taken. The guys that took her, they were from Albania. And I was like, oh, wow, like, sounds dangerous. And they're like, oh, yeah, the Albanian mafia, you're going to get yourself in trouble going there just with like a group of girls. And it was like, what? And then going to Albania, it was so, so safe. It was so unbelievably safe that it's almost laughable. So I really do like to I like to go to these places through the lens of a female and then kind of put the information out there, like set the record straight that these places are not dangerous and especially not for a female solo traveler.
Definitely. What do you think that like publications could do to increase the ratio of female audience?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I have a good answer for that. I feel like, of course, if it's stuff like Nomad Capitalist, I mean, I honestly love his site. I love the content that he puts out, but it is definitely more masculine in the sense where I feel like it's just the delivery is just kind of guided more towards that. Like the fonts and the colors, all of his marketing is just definitely more of like a masculine brand. But I don't necessarily know that he needs to make it more feminine. I don't know. I don't think I have a good answer for that.
Interesting. Well, yeah, we'll pretty much wrap it up there. Kashlee from Canada, traveloffpath.com, one of the leading female entrepreneurs in the travel industry.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. This has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. In the show notes, I'm going to link everything to Kashlee and Travel Off Path's information so you guys can check everything out and join her newsletter. Thanks so much, Kashlee.
Thank you.